It doesn't matter.
Okay, I call finance to order.
Without
We call the Human Services meeting to order, and if we're going to go right in, someone make a motion to accept the minutes of August 31st. Okay, thanks, Jay. And Dan, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so we're going to go into mental health. Rob, we had a
Okay, revenues on 14.
Do we want to do these first? Resolution request.
Okay, yep.
And then we'll go to the budget.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So first thing I have up is a resolution request to amend the 2022 Washington County budget. $8,991 for acceptance of cash. Since state aid funds designated for People USA, this is associated with the minimum wage adjustment.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
In terms of our budget, Harry Carlson is our deputy director of fiscal. Harry put together the budget, so I'll turn over to him.
Okay, just to run through it, the state aid we increased this year for 2023. It's basically just the back to the 5.4% COLA that they awarded this year. They awarded it effective April 1, so 1 quarter for next year. So that basically is what it's reflected there. We're hoping that, which I assume they will once the budget passed next year, we can annualize for another year. So we have the estimate for the federal salary sharing of 80,000. Even though we haven't really received that much this year, we only received 1 quarter payment, but historically we've averaged out about 80,000. Some years we've got more than that. 6 quarters payments, and other years. So we just kept it at 80. That's the way they work. And under the contracts, again, the increases. 2023, guidance parts was the psychiatric. We put 250 in. Again, we really leave it up to the treasurer and list administrator to say what a budget. It's like
Where do you expect it to end this year? Because I see it's 316 already.
Yeah.
Well, we do try to track it. The billing lags significantly behind, so that's why you see that number.
Right.
What we think we've incurred through September, through the 25th of September, was the last time somebody updated this. It looked like we were at 465.9. So we're almost at 500,000 this year. It's just off the charts. That's just 3 individuals.
So is this something moment?
What is the actual, the 200 and, or well, let's say 100, 316,000. What actual cost is that? Is that strictly labor? Is that like salary for the psychiatrist, or is it a lot more than that?
These are people, that go to a
Right.
state hospital, right?
Right.
the
So
state
we're paying for
hospital-
the stay and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
They have a per diem rate, and they just charge the county, this $1,000 a day, basically what it is. So it covers all kinds of their costs, the staffing costs, the facility costs.
Couple questions on the outside services.
Is it zero for the actual amount just because the billings haven't caught up at this point?
Yep.
Okay,
It's once a year we pay Warren County because they do all the payroll for the Community
Okay.
Services Board. We pay monthly.
and it says grants others, the 25,000 for the amended budget, we actually paid for grant services for somebody already here before us.
Nope, that was a grant that they got during the year. And you'll see the unspent balance roll forward into 23. Whatever they don't spend out of it. It's an additional grant they received during.
Wouldn't that be revenue? Whereas you're not an expense.
There's revenue.
Well, yeah, but you spend it on something and they haven't spent it.
There was
So how did
revenue.
it- Okay, so it's amended but not
Right.
expended because it hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah.
That hasn't caught up yet either.
The actual is not put posted yet, no. Not until they put a claim in. Because they spend out of their accounts and then put a claim in with me and then it'll hit the books.
So that's sort of a grant expense.
Yeah, so there's a 25,000 in the revenue and 25,000 in the expense. They're offset, they're net zero.
So, only in the amended, we haven't got it, and we haven't spent it, it's just kind of amended the budget for both.
Correct.
Are the three individuals looking like they're gonna be leaving? Are they gonna be living there?
Well, let's see, I can tell you that our first individual was in there, 3 months and 6 days. Second individual went in March and was still there. Third individual went in May and was still there. Now, looking back in the past, usually it's about 90 days. So usually it's about 3 months. Some people stay a little longer, some people stay a little shorter. These two individuals have been there, extended period, so. You know, it's unfortunate the way the system is set up because the state has no incentive really to push these people back out.
Mr. Hank,
Back in the good old days, wasn't the state responsible for 50% of that?
It's 50-50.
They're no longer doing that.
that can't be right.
We're gonna make it for all of us. We have to now.
Wow. Thanks, Bob. Yeah,
How long?
for reminding us.
When Brian and I started it,
Yeah.
Another
then
one.
it was, I think in the second Cuomo administration, Cuomo Junior administration. It stopped doing it.
Should we revisit it?
Well, this last thing that we were revisiting the state.
I think there are advocacy efforts through NISAC, and I know through my statewide association, which is NISAC affiliate, of course, advocating for the state to step in again and pick up half.
They like passing their costs down to us and let someone doesn't notice. That's kind of.
The only way they can possibly get into property taxes.
Yep.
So they really want to control the property.
So it's not gonna, that's not gonna happen this year. So do we want to keep this at this amount in our budget?
What's probably low, if anything, it's well overdue on it being raised.
So we've had years that have been almost zero.
Yes, but now there's a bigger microscope on it now where it's gonna be, they're gonna send more people in this direction. I think they're gonna grow that. That's my point. I think 250 is low, but I think it doesn't mean we hit it next year, but we've already surpassed it this year by almost double,
It's
so.
not a goal to achieve, I don't think it's
No.
a bad number. Here we go. You know, pretty good medium shot at it there.
Yeah, I think Jay's question was on the mark, but we don't know how many are coming or how long the stay is gonna be, so that's why you can't really predict that. Yeah. Any other questions? Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, Robin, from what I'm reading here, it looks like your revenues are up around 40,000 and your costs are only up about 30,000. So really you've narrowed the gap a little bit. It's just the unknown from the psychiatric is the driving issue here, correct? So really, I mean, you're doing good because you're going the other way for it. It's a benefit with this new budget.
I guess I can't read that.
2.5.
Well, I looked at the amended.
I'm just looking at the budget for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we
And
amended
hopefully
that
continues.
somehow.
Right.
No, the call, if that continues, and more than likely will even help more, but the psychiatric expense is gonna swallow that easily.
Oh, yeah. But that's out of our control. The other part is in our control.
100% of the stuff.
None of it really is, like, the contracts are the contracts and how they're funded, it's kind of really all out of Rob's control. He just kind of does his best to wrangle the cats.
And the county sure of the contract.
Yeah, I shouldn't have.
Right. Hey, well, thanks a lot. Unless anybody's got other questions, I think you guys are doing a good job, best you can for the situation we're in. We expect the situation worse, and we'll hope for the best.
Well,
Oh, we'll get them partway there. We'll get them to Hampton. That's right.
I take any chances.
Thanks a million, guys. Good job. We're ready to go to veterans. Hello, everybody. Hey, how you doing? Page 16 is revenue, 77 is expense.
For the revenue, we get the standard $10,000 to the state aid. Most of my budget lines have largely had stagnated due to the unknowns at the beginning of the year as a consequence of COVID. A lot of the outreach that we wanted to pursue in my office was mostly restricted due to that, as well as our continued caseload. And we're hoping that with one of the topics I want to discuss is with the potential of adding an additional CDSO. We're hoping to keep continuity within the office that would allow the director and the deputy director to properly support a robust community outreach program, urging veterans to pursue and file for federal, state, and local benefits, and at a minimum, educate county veterans on eligibility for the said benefits. Additionally, we'll free up enough man hours to enhance support of the Adirondack peer-to-peer program, which is now contracted out to SUNY Adirondack.
Do you have a cost for that with benefits? What it would be, that extra person?
Yes.
I know it's not in the budget.
Yes, I do have it.
Maybe you have
43,000 without them.
43 without.
Yeah.
Just making everybody aware.
In 2022, we decided, due to, again, the unknowns at the beginning of the year, to forego attending the in-person NACVSO conference. It's a national conference and convention to maintain our accreditation. We decided instead to attend the virtual New York State Division of Veteran Services accreditation, and received accreditation through them, and maintained the American Legion accreditation, who we largely file our claims through. We would like to attend the 2023 NACVSO conference in person, as it is most advantageous to my office. When attended in person, due to the opportunities and exposure that the conference offers, it's really second to none. The intent would be for the director, deputy director, and if established and newly hired CDSO to attend. Maintaining and offering representation through 3 accreditations at that point, American Legion, ACVSO, and New York State Division of Veteran Services, would be extremely advantageous as it would allow 3 avenues of approach to connect with the veterans, increasing the office's effectiveness. We would have a wider established access to records needed to obtain claims and benefits. We would also have the ability for the office to work more seamlessly with outside agencies and access more resources for the CDSOs. As far as the staffing request specifically, the reason for the request largely were due to the recent PACT Act legislation. It's already bringing more awareness to veteran issues. It was a high-profile legislation with a lot of media exposure. This is a good thing, of course, because veterans have already begun calling and scheduling appointments. We have every reason to believe that those volumes are only going to increase, especially as Gulf War veterans continue to age. When we take on a veteran case or a claim, we hold that representation, but we're filing largely for chronic disabilities that with age and time are typically only going to get worse and only going to lead into secondary issues. Those follow-on claims also extend on to that veteran's family, either the spouse or dependent children, even unfortunately sometimes after the veteran has passed away. The current wait times for new caseloads, new claim has been consistently 3 to 4 weeks out. And it has been that pace for many months. Because prior to the PACT Act, additional legislation was passed concerning service members and Marines affected by Camp Lejeune's contaminated water and Vietnam veterans exposed to Agent Orange. One of the things I've recognized, especially as COVID kind of shined a light on it, is a lack of continuity, which even one CVSO is missing within the office. Again, it was most apparent through COVID when adhering to quarantine restrictions. It also restricts the ability of employees within the office to use personal time or vacation time efficiently and effectively. Adding a new position would add that stability and continuity to the office. Currently, we're representing actively have taken on an additional 182 veterans this year since the beginning of the year. And we currently have 176 open claims that's split between myself and Michael. 123 of those are compensation claims, 14 are at a higher level review with informal conferences that are pending, 29 are supplemental claims or appeals, and we have 10 additional pensions. Additionally, adding 2 per diem positions for the bus drivers, the per diem bus drivers would strengthen the office's ability to provide much needed transportation to veterans. As the VA is moving more and more to community care, instead of traditionally having the appointments at the Glens Falls Outpatient Clinic or the Albany VA Center in Albany, over an hour away. VA is now contracting through community care doctors, allowing veterans to go to more local appointments inside the VA network. This is shortening the wait times and the travel times, but it's also increasing the volume of needs for the veterans to get to those appointments. Main intent of the positions is for the office to have a reliable pool of drivers to depend on should one driver not be available, not necessarily to increase the amount of hours drivers are on the road. So
To prevent you from canceling appointments because somebody can't get them.
correct. That's one of the big issues is that when you get a cancellation within the VA, you're looking at least 30, but closer to 60 days before you can get another appointment. And that's largely why the VA has gone to community care. Again, COVID kind of shoved them in that direction. But. So with that, I really have only requested small increases in a couple budget lines, including the education, training, and staff development to cover the potential costs of the in-person NPSO conference. Registration for the conference would be $350 per person for a total of $1,050. Airfare, I was a guesstimate at about $700 a ticket for 3 individuals. That's $2,100 total. Hotel nights, $200 a night for 7 nights, 7 days for 3 people. That's $4,200. And the per diem, unless I have the number incorrect, was $30 a day for 7 days. For 3 people, that's $630 for a total of $7,980. So I requested a budget line of $8,500 for that. And I also increased our mileage expenses for the transportation. At the beginning of the year, we had a dip in the transportation, again, due to ongoing COVID restrictions. But mid-year, I had replaced one of our per diem drivers because I really wasn't getting the hours I could get from that second per diem driver. So we went a little while maintaining just one driver. But since we've hired our second driver that has more availability, our hours have increased, and we expect those as we continue to advertise and push for the veterans transportation. We expect that to increase as well.
Any questions?
It's not, I know you're doing a lot more transportation, it's not per se in your budget, but in the carpool, you requested 2 vans.
Yes.
Make your argument for them, because that's gonna, carpool gets attacked tomorrow, so make your argument. The same people will be sitting in the room, so.
I'll make the argument for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we could all take a trip out to the transportation we have now. The bus that we use is, it's a wooden box on wheels, so it's a steel box on wheels, I should say. It has no suspension, the mileage is extremely high. We're talking about putting, if not wheelchair bound, then, 60, 70, 80-year-old veterans on a bus that has no give. I know some of the routes here in the county, they're not the worst, but they have a few bumps on them, to say the least. The van, we have a minivan as well, but that's also got a good amount of wear and tear and mileage. But more importantly, those back seats are kind of useless. I'm in my mid-30s and I can't get into the back of a minivan anymore. But you take a 75-year-old veteran with severe arthritis throughout his body, if not more issues than that, then the only option for him or her to sit is the front seat. So we're kind of restricted at that as well. So we're looking at shuttle vans, or shuttle buses. A lot of the surrounding counties use them. They're extremely convenient, wheelchair capable, and a lot better on mileage. So that would cut down costs as well, especially as we see an increase in how much transportation we're using.
You're also having occasions where you're gonna have, with the community health, they're heading in more than one direction at the same time, right? So, the extra van would make an appointment somewhere with the van, another van was gone somewhere else. Right?
Absolutely right. Yeah, we do get one-off, calls where one veteran needs a ride to Glens Falls, but the other one does need to go or does need to go to Saratoga home and out.
You mentioned earlier in your conversation about open claims or open cases. Closed cases. What's a closed case? I mean, what has to transpire for the open case to become a closed case or gone? I don't know how I would word it. What's the right approach? And like you said, how many you're carrying open cases? How many are you closed?
So once a claim is opened, one of the first things that happen is we have to request records. We have to obtain records and review them. We also have to figure out essentially what we're going to be filing Once we figure that out and we're able to file the claim, the veteran is going to attend. Well, first they're going to get some more correspondence that might require action on our part. That's one of the difficulties in the scheduling times for the veterans. Is if we're seeing them even 2 to 3 weeks out, we're already behind the 8 ball because a lot of this VA correspondence, very first thing on the letter says important, reply needed within 30 days. And if the VA doesn't get a reply, they'll close the claim, they'll deny it. That would start a whole snowball effect of appealing the claim and trying to fight it, basically from the other side. Once the claim is submitted, the veteran is getting that correspondence, they're also going to be scheduled for a series of compensation exams. These are medical exams that could be anywhere as well, another need for that transportation. Once those compensation exams are completed, that information then gets sent back to the VA Evidence Intake Center, where they continue to, a representative from the VA continue to do a review and decide on that claim. That whole process can vary depending on how much is claimed in that particular. The veteran has claimed 15 chronic disabilities, that might be 15 different medical exams that he or she needs to go to. Typically, a claim from beginning to end might take about 6 to 8 months. If the severity or urgency calls for more than that, we can request for them to be expedited. But those are certain instances where the veteran is 85 or older, at or near homeless, or at risk for homelessness, or financial crisis, or recent death, or impending death of the veteran. Once that claim is closed, we'll have one last appointment with the veteran to ensure that the decision was correct. If everything, it looks good, everything seems correct, everything is by law, then that might be it for that particular claim. Quite often there are mistakes, there's things to follow on. Now there's another claim to open up because now we're looking at back pay. We're looking at maybe appealing the decision because it wasn't correct, or we need to gather more info, more evidence to appeal that decision. That then would, a reopening of that claim could extend on to another 6 to 8 months, depending on the route. But if it goes into a full appeal, Board of Veterans Appeals, they're averaging about 2 years until that claim is at the top of the docket.
So an appeal is the fact that the claim was denied and you're appealing it.
Correct.
Right. And if the claim is accepted, then that's a closed case claim, or a closed case. If the VA approved it, whatever the application or claim was for.
Correct, but there's probably a 98% chance for an additional claim in the near future for that veteran. Like I said, we're filing for chronic disabilities that only get worse with time. Some of them, well, they range from things like arthritis or muscle tears or scarring to very severe cancers that metastasize or spread. Unfortunately, those new diagnoses are going to require a new claim to be opened and pursued.
How many veterans do you think you see in a year? Number 2, how much money do you return to the county from what you get? I think that's probably.
So the county directly, I don't pull money back for the county, but this is money that goes back to within the veterans or families' pockets. And compensate, I don't have the exact figures. I know for compensation alone, it's kind of tens of millions per year.
I just want to add to the comment that I know that Mr. Shaw made the comment that when a claim was denied, it was appealed. It just doesn't have to be denied. It can be the wrong amount of percentage that they were given for compensation. That can be appealed. There's the effective date of the actual award itself can be appealed if it's the wrong date. So it's not just when they're which adds additional work there. I'm just pointing it out. It's not when they're just denied. There's more to it than just when they're denied a claim.
Correct. Pay for dependents, the list can go on and on.
Any more questions? Good. Thanks, Scott. Very good.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you.
Mike and Sue, looks like you're up next for Youth Bureau and Community Sentencing.
First. All right, great. The first thing was permission granted and contract for Warren County for basic services. Those are services we have in place, and there's no additional cost, but we will be able to get reimbursement for that contract. So I'm asking permission into that.
Any questions for Mike on this? All in favor?
The second is Commissioner in contract for differential services. Effective December 29th of this year, any youth under the age of 12 has to be, so the parents ticket for any J would be termed the JD Act, crime with a living adult. They can no longer be written parents ticket to go to probation. They have to be, PSS is charged with coming up with what they call the differential response, which means assessment. Those are some of the programs that we use in collaboration with BSS. Fit nicely in that community with no additional cost. Locally in my budget, we anticipate revenue from the state to cover that expense. And Warren County is asked if we consider it the same. I think we can at no additional cost because we're talking about a population of about 3 youth at maximum. About 5 years look back, 1 youth, 2 youth, 3 youth. And they're the same service that we currently utilize restorative practices for. So, and that would, if granted, that would be an additional $15,000 for 2020.
That's the two of them together.
Any questions for Mike?
And lastly, permission to sign a contract with also for the Challenger program. That was for the New York State Youth Education Sports Opportunity Funding. I mentioned a few months back, $6,951, I believe. And that's for the Challenger program that operates for 7 months. Those are, it's a softball program that is fun.
You're saying that's grant funded?
It is 100% grant funded. The criteria this year was that you had a contract with a non-profit and also and being an underserved population. We expect every year that this funding stream is going to grow. It's money that's skimmed off of taken out of the sport. I might that was the term of use. So it was taken off of the online sports betting. So we pushed back and said we'd like more flexibility because every county in the state is.
I'll move that before he says it.
Any questions for Mike?
We just forgot to warn them about sitting next to Supervisor Fedler.
I'm in here. Reserving my head for that.
That's why Paul moved me here. And he's no fool.
I only go to.
No, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'll assure you that I'm down to budget. No skimming here. If you turn to page 18, on the revenue side. First category is departmental income. Those are just funds that we receive for offender-based programs that charge for reimbursement directly from the offenders. So $29,500. Underneath that's $20,000 revenue. That's from Hudson Falls for transitional services for incarcerated youth. So that remains the same. General services, other government, line, $105,000. That's the contract with Warren County. So if we're gonna, with the permission to go forward, that would probably be 120 for next year.
So, Mike,
Yes.
back on your other, the Department of Mother, 2022 was 135.45, and this year's 29.5.
It looks
Yeah.
like that money was together in the top line.
It was, that 105,000 was originally put into that line, Dave, that moved down below. So,
Makes it look better.
okay. Well, thank you. All right, and then moving down, interdepartmental revenues, 250. That's a combination of SCSJ funding, safe harbor funding, and there were reductions, changed from 2022 amended to our request reflects a decrease in SDSJP funding and safe harbor funding. And as we move down, you'll see the alternative sentencing community service program. We budgeted the same flat for all the way down. Until you get down to state aid, public safety for other programs, and that's the ETAS program, which last year budgeted 116,750. We think our actual amount is going to be 101. It's the ETAS program, and this is the last year of a 5-year funding stream, which was actually part of a 12-year funding stream. So this is the last year of that. So we filed a grant application, ATI grant, ECGS again, for continuation of this, and our ask, and there's a pretty good. I was supposed to know about the results of it almost a month ago, but it's state soon. So waiting on that. That amounts 157,400, 157,400. So I'm confident that.
Something's coming.
No, I'm pretty good that that was a solid application. So,
The total.
yeah, but I didn't include this in the budget, so it's not there. So there's that. And then stated for all of the programs on the revenue side is combination mostly as funding of the youth sports money, the IPP youth development program, and the RHYA, which is a home issue that is passed through the late. So if you look at the bottom line total for revenue, we're about 145,772, less than last year, but with the proposed, well, the anticipated funding, we're going to be in better shape than we were last year. So moving, that's the revenue side. Are any questions on revenue? No, expenses, that's on page 82. First category is our earnings. You'll see that they include proposed raise for 2023. And as far as moving to the second line, part-time, that's for our summer youth employment coordinator. And overtime, $15,000, time and a half. And on-call is there the same. And on-call, yeah, that's it. So not included here is an ask that I had from moving a position upgrade from a grade 9 to a grade 13. Is the duties and responsibility are definitely justified the move. And that expense is $6,006 to do that next year. I brought it to personnel and I believe it was presented to personnel. That's not included. And then fringe benefits are what they are. Are there any questions at all so far?
So somebody's retired. I have some incentives.
Yeah, we have possibly two. And then moving down, if you go to contractual, telephone's the same, postage, office supplies, and equipment, that those are our motors and tremors that we use for service project. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Oh, he's not there yet. Sorry.
Is that a $300?
There's nothing else. We'll turn to page 83. And then contractual expenses are all the programming that we contract with these base organizations provide. In electronic monitoring for some SDSJP programs. Any questions on that? Then moving down to dues and subscriptions, you see that the expense is $599. Those are that Association New York State Youth Bureau, Capital District Youth Bureau, New York State Association for Trial Services, and Black Tries a program we use for juveniles to build value for change. Moving down for travel, I know this is where we're supposed to talk about our travel plans for next year. Right now, we have a huge hole in lifeguard training. We've had community volunteers in the past that have stepped up, and we've been very fortunate to do that. I think I need to build capacity in-house to get a trained trainer. We have lifeguards, so we need to take that next step to do the certified. So we've looked at it. I have no idea where we'll end up finding the program, but you'll see that's increased to $1,500 for travel to train that person. Then if you look down education staff, training and development, it's increased to $1,000, and that's to also include cover that cost. So mileage, there was an adjustment made for that. Fuels for the gas motors and copier cost $2,000. Miscellaneous others are brought up. Those folks that are down, as well as Winterfest expenses, the garden expenses, Red Cross training, our fair participation. If there are no,
Actually, it's a top of 84. It's got a grant of practice grant, again, another expense. I was looking for the exact same thing on the revenue side. I didn't see it. Is it built into a different?
That's my question.
yes,
When he got there, we don't normally budget the grants. That's why I was curious.
You do it one way or the other. You put them both in, or you take both out, right?
the revenue,
Is that part of a different revenue item that's
it is
over here?
Is it a new grant?
It was new as of 2022.
So is it the same?
Is it under state aid?
It's a $75,000 grant that's included in.
We committed this year's for 51,865.
Right, right.
Is it the
There's
same
going to be some leftover carryover for next year. It was 75,000, but.
Well, it either should have its own line or it should be included in one of these other grants, but it doesn't appear to be.
So what we would normally do is not include the expense or the revenue. And when you have the carry forward number, you bring that to committee in like February.
Right.
That would be the normal grant practice. Okay. So did you say it was?
It is, it's included in here up in the
153.
Actually in the 273 state aid totals. It's in there.
Yeah, but in the 3820 account, it's budgeted.
3820.
And it's that same exact amount, the
It is.
56,375.
It is.
So the normal practice would be to take both of those out and to have them come to committee in February when the actual rollover. You'll take whatever the award was minus what you spent and hold the balance.
Very good.
That's usually around February.
Sure.
Let's say you see.
I'll be sure. Of course.
Well, just when you got state aid for youth programs, it's a big roll of all kinds of stuff, and then you break it out on the expense side. It's really hard to match them up.
No, it is.
Thanks, man.
This is probably for Brian. Some of the mileage and carpool expenses, just in the past couple of days, it seems like.
They're up a third.
I'm doing the math.
Yeah, they're pretty much up a third.
But they seem like everyone's up a little bit different percentage if you've got some.
Well, that was numbers I had off originally, but so some of them are a little one way or the other, but not much.
Because let's say you said 2.6 or something.
No, it's about 1/3. We went from 45 to 60, and it's 40 some odd percent DSS because they went from 35 to 50.
Say that one more time.
From 45 to 60 is 1/3. But when you go 15 cents on 35 to 50, because they have a lower rate because they buy their,
Okay, the rate's still.
then it's a little higher percentage.
Okay, got it.
No, they have some.
Piggybacking off what Dave said, I'm not trying to make, but if you're gonna buy mowers and trimmers, I bought an electric mower and trimmer with the same battery, and use it in both, and it slept in place and.
Oh my God.
What?
What? Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, push mower.
No, is that a lead cord?
Push mower doesn't even. Tesla. Everybody's got them, KLB and Lowe's has got 10 of different kinds.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, maybe look into it, if it doesn't work out, then don't do it.
No, absolutely.
No, you don't.
We have a generator. But I don't
Bring
know.
another battery, you won't have to more than before you have to recharge.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I do, but I have my tractor, but I still need something.
No, really.
He does a lot of cemetery work.
Then you gotta push around and stuff.
No, it's a very good point. The key is you have to buy the same kind.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be the same kind because it's gotta be interchangeable.
Yeah, one same battery for all.
It's the same, with it's a cordless drill or anything, yeah. Leaf blower. Cars. Okay.
But it's something we'll consider. So I believe that.
It's already something.
A lot of the work we do, these are basically throwaways, because they're used commercially, they're not commercial. And right and all that, and the electric, I'm not sure. How they roll up, I have an electric. All right,
Is
so.
it remote control too, so you can do it from the recliner?
Are you-
Is it remote control too, so you guys use it from the
I don't
recliner?
use it.
For now,
I don't use
well,
it.
that's fine.
Yes.
You can't. The recliner with the lift is 2,500. There's no way.
I don't know, I don't.
Thank you. Let's be for you.
So if the revenue comes through, and as anticipated, expect a bigger share of about 3% for 2023.
Just remember some other requests next week.
In the absence of that 157,400, I'm gonna work with administration to see if there's any opportunities to use opioid settlement funds. This criteria for using those funds that the services that we provide. And we're going to have a discussion possibly in the future about that opioid settlement funds. And that's
We just got our third payment.
and it's a sustainable amount of 38.
So did I read that right? The 157 for can go in because even if it didn't make it, you think we could use those funds?
If the county administration agreed to support it, yes. Because it does fit the criteria to produce those funds.
Appreciate it. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Beck. Good work.
Okay. Moving on.
I'm not the one. I should be here. They're laughing. Where we're gonna keep an eye on. I keep looking.
And you still might be gone by lunch at the rate we're going. This is a hell of a deal. Different yesterday. Sorry. Hope I didn't jinx that.
No pressure. Okay.
Today we'll start with your
Yeah,
revenue.
our start on page 7.
Okay.
About halfway down the page is where we start, and it's our preschool program. This is revenue. So that first line, the 162102, that represents Medicaid funding that we received for our preschool program. So that's budgeted consistent as last year. We've had a couple off years, as you know. So we are keeping that budget revenue line consistent. And the revenue directly correlates with our expenses. The more expenses we have, obviously, the more we have, that program, as well as our early intervention program. The second line there, and just one thing to point out there, it does say early intervention, but it's not, it's strictly just preschool. And that second line, we usually don't use anymore, which I'll have a conversation with the treasurer. That historically, that was our coordination line for when we build ourselves for early intervention. But we don't do that anymore. The state does that on our behalf now. So that line should be 0. I think there was some things getting booked there that should have been booked in a different line. And then the next big line is the 3446. We do get 59.5% back for our preschool expenses, including transportation. So that's 59.5%, and that's from the state education department. And again, that directly correlates with our expenses. So that line has decreased a little bit based on our projected expenses.
That's because the number of people is down.
It is, yes. And also our transportation expenses. And then if we go to the next page, set of accounts, 12 actually. Several revenue lines there. About halfway down the page. About halfway down the page is the home nursing charges. That's for our licensed home care service agency. This account has been steadily declining, and then with COVID, it went down even further. So we did decrease that. Home visits are down. So we did decrease that to $5,000 to be more realistic with what we're actually doing for home visits under our home care service agency. The next line is we do get money from our rabies clinics, donations that people give at those clinics. And also when we do chart copies, we have revenue coming in for that when we get chart requests. And the third line has to do with our immunization clinics that we hold. A lot of what we do in the past couple of years has been COVID clinics, which there is no revenue associated with that. Those clinics, that vaccine cuts free. So that we did put that back up. We are starting to see an uptick in our other vaccines that we're doing for children and adults that are coming in needing vaccine. So we did put that back in line with what it was for the revenue for 2020, because we are getting somewhat back to normal there with our clinics other than COVID. Going down, the next big one there is our state aid, the 3401. We do get 100% reimbursement for our core services that we provide. And then once we meet, they did increase that this past fiscal year to $577,500. It was at $500,000. But they also gave us the ability to claim our fringe benefits. So that will take up some of that increase, being able to claim the fringe. So that's why there's the increase there at $715,000. The negative there, not sure how up to date yours is, but the negative $38,000 that's under the 2022 amount. That was actually due to a take back of our state aid from 2020. The state had recalculated our fourth quarter claim based on the grants that we had coming in that covered some of our COVID expenses. And I also want to introduce Fran. I'm sorry, I should have done that in the beginning. Fran is our new fiscal officer. She's right over here, and I think you met Eliza at the last meeting. Fran did run an updated report. So that actually that state aid now does include our first and second quarter for 2022. So it's $524,000 right now, and not the negative $38,000, just so you're aware of that. The 2022 amended amount under 3489, that $980,000, just to bring to your attention, that is one of our grants. That's our fellowship grant. And that we started that program in June.
The fellow started 7/7.
In July.
This will be the first quarter that we're able to claim.
Right, so that's why you're not seeing any revenue there. And then going into 2023, we'll carry over whatever's unspent. So we'll be doing that, and as the treasurer mentioned in January or February of 2023. Page 13, the 4401, that is our immunization action plan. It's more of a program, so we do include now it's $31,050. That covers a lot of our immunization administrative expenses under there. The 448902, that is our health preparedness grant. And that the 2021 actual amount was one of our COVID grants that also hit there. So our public health preparedness grant is not that significant. It's just right around 60,000. So again, we'll be adding that money to our budget in 2023.
Used to be better.
It did. And then the next, the 4510, that's our public health, or no, I'm sorry, that's our car seat grant, the passenger safety grant. So again, we'll add that in January when we have the unspent funds. Going down to early intervention, the 4059-162104, $20,000. That represents our Medicaid billing for early intervention service coordination. I had mentioned previously that there was some amount in the preschool. That's actually where those funds should be hitting, is in this account. So we can talk with the treasurer after, to make that adjustment. And then the 4059-3449, that is also early intervention. We get 50% reimbursed from the Department of Health for anything that we pay out of our escrow account. It's kind of the last resort payment. And again, that is consistent with the previous year budgeted amount. The 4059-4451, that's our early intervention administrative grant. And again, we'll carry that over in January when we have the unspent amount. And then WIC is our next big area. That is, you'll see the WIC grant did go up about 2%. So, and again, that's 100% USDA federal funding. So they do cover their expenses. And they do run on a different fiscal year, so it won't match up dollar for dollar. The next page, the 4189, that's our COVID account. You'll see the amended budget amount is large, the 1.6 million. Again, we'll carry over whatever's left. We do not anticipate spending that grant. That is a lot for us to be able to spend on COVID when COVID is kind of, as far as our expenses are coming down. But we will carry that over into the next year's budget. I think that's all for that. That's all on the revenue side. Are there questions related to the revenue?
This is, excuse me, it's probably pretty small potatoes on your donations at the rabies clinics is about 16,901. They always put in $5,000. I don't remember it ever being over 1,500 ever. It's usually less than 1,000.
Yeah.
How come you keep putting in $5,000?
Yeah.
You're wildly enthusiastic.
Not a lot of effort coming up.
Some years we, like the last couple of years, we haven't been able to do as many rabies clinics because of COVID. So we are increasing those, and we did have other things in there previously that we used to get donations as well for, like if we did car seat giveaways, we would get donations as well for that. We don't really advertise that anymore as accepting donations for that. People can give if they want, but we don't advertise it. So we probably could lower that, down to closer to the 1,500 based on not doing that anymore.
I just thought maybe it's something new that wasn't.
No.
aware of.
Nope. So moving on to expenses, I'm on page 49. The preschool appropriations and the 2960 account. Slight increase in the regular earnings from 300,000 amended budget to 303. That is just the percentage increase that was in the new rates that we received. what that is. The one thing I did want to point out here is the overtime line, the 296123, 125,000. That again was money that was put into the budget based on one of our COVID grants. We were all full on during COVID, so the people that were budgeted under the preschool account, whatever was budgeted relating to them, relating to COVID was put into this account. So again, that is money that we're not anticipating spending this year, but it will again get carried over until the end of that grant year. So we did bring that, the budgeted amount is back down in line with actual. Next page, under contractual, we did decrease the full line based on what our expenses been in the past. So that is down to 500. Then for contractual expenses, the 4040, that's our preschool evaluations. Again, that ties in with our revenue. Consistent with the prior year. And then under maintenance contract, that is our McGinnis preschool software that we budget, consistent with the previous year. Under the Mylar, we budgeted the same as last year, understanding that if we do move in the next year, that may increase, but we would have money in some other accounts, most likely to move around to cover that Mylar. Tuition, that is when we have children going to tuition-based programs for preschool services. And that is probably one of our biggest accounts. Again, it's at 2 million. We kept it consistent with previous year. We do get reimbursed 59.5% of that. Again, related to those revenue accounts that I discussed earlier. Transportation, we did lower that based on the number of kids being transported to be more in line with what we think the actual will be. And I know we've said this in previous years, this account is difficult to budget because we get one child that needs a lot of services, or the state decides to do a reconciliation at the end of the year and change providers' rates. We have to make up that difference. So I know other years we've kind of adjusted these numbers. So just wanted to put that out there. And on the next page, under public health, the 404 account, going to the regular earnings. Again, that 2022 amended amount that includes the COVID grant staff and also the overtime as well. So if you look at the 2023 department request, it is a slight increase from the adopted budget, and that's just a percentage increase there. Not anticipating, as you can see, we had quite a few retirements last year, as I know you're aware. So we're not anticipating, I think we have one anticipated retirement for 2023. So that's why that 5,000 is there. And then the on-call, we are required to have someone on call 24/7. And that is per, those rates are per the nurse's contract, the night contract. So that is consistent with the prior year. And then down below under equipment, office equipment, the 2,500, we are looking to, right now we have one very large scanner in our office to scan in our medical files. We are looking to upgrade that. We've had it for, since we went on to that back in 2013. We're looking to get 2 smaller scanners. So more than one person can scan. Right now it's hooked to just one computer. So we're looking to replace that big scanner. And we have been working with that our software vendor and also IT with that. The 1,200, we did budget for a laptop there. And I don't know, as far as or requesting new positions, is that something that is discussed here? Or
Yeah,
okay.
you mentioned
Okay. We did submit a request to move our health educator that we have right now to a senior health educator. This position has taken on tremendous amount more responsibilities. When you look at the job description for senior health educator, this person is doing those things that are in there, and she has been. So we're looking to move that person up to a senior health educator, create a senior health educator. We did have one years ago, but she had retired, and then we had just two health educators, and then another one health educator. So we'd like to be able to move her to senior, backfill her position with a health educator, and then add another health educator. What we're finding is, as you're all aware, we're having trouble recruiting nurses. And some of what the nurses are doing can be done by health educators. So we would like to have health educators come in to take some of that load off of the nurses, so they can really focus on their nursing related work. So I did present those to personnel. We were talking to Danielle about that. So those are positions that we would like to request for 2023. So in saying that, that is a computer for the health educator position.
Did you talk to Terry about that? Because usually she'll budget that.
Yes, I did speak with her, and because we get state aid reimbursed, we thought it would be better if we would put it into our budget so we can get that reimbursement.
No,
Steve. Because there's a
because public health gets reimbursed. Yep, you got it.
Is it in 19 now?
No.
Okay, I was gonna say, it was in 19 now.
No.
And then going down under the under public health, we've got office supplies there. I just wanted to point that out. We did add money to office supplies for our 2 fellows that we have, based on the grant that we have for them. So, and again, I think we probably should have waited to put that into the 2023 budget because it is grant related. So we can either take it out now, or when we do our budget bod in January, moving that money over, we can just add that additional money in the office supplies for what's left of that grant. On the next page, under health, we have dues and subscriptions. That's our NYSHO dues and our healthcare or home care association dues, consistent with previous year. Under district consultant, that's our district money that we've been carrying over for several years. It's $87,276, and again, we would ask to carry that over into 2023, whatever's unspent for this year. Under printing, you will see an increase there, getting us, we already are at 2,300. We are getting our programs back up and running, which, you know, it does involve more printing, getting stuff out in the community as far as educational materials. So we did increase that back up to based on what our projection is. We were notified that our insurance will be going up. So we did increase that based on projections from county admin. So that was increased to $46.25. Again, our Mylar, no, I'm sorry, that's maintenance contract. Included in there is our MedEd software, which is our clinical billing software and our clinical documentation. North Country Xerox, we have to pay to bill for Medicare. And we also have a security system through Mahoney that we pay quarterly, Fianance alarm system. And then there's another software included in there. You'll see that, which we have not presented to committee yet. We're still getting some more information, and most likely we'll present that in the October meeting. It has to do with keeping our timesheets. Right now we have to keep very detailed timesheets, and they're on Excel. So we're looking at a different type of software that would be able to capture that information daily and be able to run reports on that. Right now, it's very manual process that we have to go through, and that's how we claim all of our state aid and all of our grants. So we did include the maintenance in that line for next year.
Isn't Wayne Ted in the Chronos?
I'm not sure if Kronos has that capability.
They talked about it.
Okay.
We wanted, you know,
Something.
like if we could keep that from being banned.
Let's see if there's something we can do for you.
Okay.
They work.
Like another module, yeah.
We don't currently use everything that is available, so let's stop.
Okay, yeah, that would be great if we could just add on to something that we already have.
Sure.
Mileage, the carpool, even though there is an increase in mileage rate, we did decrease that. We have been asked earlier in the year to decrease our pool cars. So we were able to do that. We are down to 4 cars that we have access to each every day. So we did decrease that based on the expense where we are now.
Do you think you'll need those cars back or not?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, we seem to have been fine so far with what we have, so.
I thought that, I wouldn't know if you thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Going down, just so you're aware, under miscellaneous, that is our, we used to burn our medical files every 7 years. We have found that it's quite expensive to do that, so we are going to try to move to a shredding group. I know there's a couple of the departments that use that, a shredding company. But in saying that, it's been a few years since we've disposed of our medical files, so that's why there's an increase there. We're going to need to get caught up with the shredding.
Is the expense burning because you have to witness it and all that?
Right. And then up there, and they have to stay there a little bit, have somebody observe the burn. And then that last account, that's our public health preparedness expense account. So that again, that'll increase in January. Pull over that grant money. The next account is the 405. That's our family health account. That this is all 100% state aid up to that maximum amount. And then it's 36% after that. And that 14,300 will increase once we carry over the car seat grant. There. That next account, the 2625, you'll see the amended budget is 6,000. Again, that's the actual we've spent is 5,300. That may increase in the 2023 budget if we have grant funding left there that relates to equipment. We would carry over. Going down, the next set of accounts is our disease control account. Again, the 406 4625, that's one of our COVID grants. Again, whatever's left will be carried over into 2023. The next account is it says Article 4, but it's actually Article 6. Under 406 4630, that's 100% state aid account. Our communicable diseases expenses fall under there, our rabies expenses, immunization expenses, anything related to disease control. And then you'll also see our TV expenditure line. There are no expenses on this line at this point, which is a good thing. But again, it could just take one case where we have to pay for those expenses. So we do like to budget $6,000 in there to cover any cases that we come our way with tuberculosis. And then the next set of accounts, that's the community health assessment. We do have a contract with Adirondack Health Institute where they assist us with pulling together information for our community health assessment. So that's a standard expense that we have each year. And then the next account is health education. The 16,000, that is money that we spend on things that we do at the fair, schools that we want to do school education, and different community events and health education supplies. And then the next set of accounts is our early intervention. Many of these accounts will increase in January when we carry over the early intervention administrative grant. You will see the bigger accounts is the 40/40, the contractual expenses. That's 27,000. That's for our early intervention evaluations. We pay out of escrow once all other methods of payment have been exhausted. We pay out of there. And same thing with our tuition expenses for early intervention. We pay out of escrow for those now. And then we did decrease the transportation. Based on our projected usage. And then the next set of accounts is our WIC grant. Again, the WIC grant is 100% funded. They did give a slight increase this year. It won't match dollar for dollar because of the timing of the grant. So I don't know how much detail you want to go into that. There's nothing really, alarming there out there. And then the last page for us is page 71. And it's the 4189 account, which is our COVID account. We only have one nurse she's actually a per diem nurse. That's helping us with some of our clinics. She's the only one left on payroll in that account. So, we are we're at about 24,000 there. We did have people on at the beginning of the year, obviously more than just one nurse, but now we're down to just the one. And same thing with the overtime there, the amended budget. We're not going to get up to that overtime in that grant. And I think under the 4189, again, that's all grant money that's put into the budget. And again, we carried over just because the grant period ended. Some of them ended 2023. We have one that extends out to 2024. So they're kind of all over the place with the grants. That's what I have. Any questions, concerns?
You might not be able to answer this. This is overwhelming, and I appreciate all the time and effort put into it. I have a simple question, but it might not be a simple answer.
Okay.
What do you expect the cost to your department to increase this year?
I have that actually. Fran had put that together. So in 2022, last year's adopted budget, we were anticipating a cost to the county of 1.9 million. And that is with our revenues and expenses. And we have fringes. In 2023, we're anticipating our net cost or net cost, those fringes, to be about 1.8 million. So it's actually down about 100,000. The one thing to keep in mind is when we budget our expenses, if we have people that are in grants, we budget their expense because we have to. Because they're in
Oh,
our,
I understand that.
which we don't reflect that in our revenues because we don't put the grants in until.
Right.
So it's off a little because of that, because of the revenue might be a little bit understated here because there's grants that we don't put in until January.
But this is what you're anticipating.
Right.
And that's the best you can do with the state anticipate.
Mhm.
There's no solid number. So good, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah, I have about $85,000 decrease in that cost, so we're pretty.
Yeah, well, there you go. Good. Good. One thing I did want to bring up, if there's no other budget questions, we met yesterday, we are going to, because of our clinics being extremely busy on Wednesdays, we are going to open up a pod that we're going for boosters. For the Moderna, we have Moderna boosters. We're going to do October 13th from 4:30 to 6:30. We've okayed that with buildings and grounds. It's anybody 18 and over. And we'll be sending those links, the link around. It's just to try to take some of it off of our Wednesday clinics. It's pretty crazy over there on Wednesdays. And then I think all of you've seen, we also are doing our employee flu clinic here in this building on October 27th from 9 to 12. And you should have already all seen that link as well. We do have quite a few signed up already, which is great. So just wanted to put that out there for anybody that's interested in the booster.
Question? Robert?
Already got mine.
That was a great job, Keno.
Right.
That was a good job.
Thank you.
Thanks for your efforts.
More and almost sick of bed.
Okay, we are ready.
That was obvious.
No, no, you're good, huh?
I often wonder.
So it's like, right down the time of projected. See how good you are.
Just say.
Just write it down. Just write it down.
Whatever time was yesterday before that was good.
I'll just write it down. Just write it down. At the end.
Yeah, sure. Yes. I did ask for a last minute item to be added onto the agenda for today to be able to think about for 2022 before we go into the 2023 budget. And again, this is the same theme as I've been bringing to you over the last several months, looking for reliefs to the staff that we have that are staying. And so specifically, I'm speaking to the caseworker title. So these are the people that go into the field, but also have a lot of paper case management work that they need to do, home work that they need to do. But it's child protective services, foster care, preventive services, and adult services. So the turnover rate, when we are able to replace people, it takes at least 6 months for them to get through all of the mandated training before they're able to handle a caseload. State law. So by the time we get people there, the other workers are having tremendously large caseloads and they need administrative help. And what we have found is that when we do have new workers that are there and going through the training, they're able to be the assist, but they aren't able to be the workers to handle the cases. That's what got us to thinking that if we could have other people be able to provide more of that administrative assistance and helping them with progress notes, making phone calls, documenting that sort of information, it would be beneficial. The question still becomes, where do you get those people from? Because we're having trouble getting people to fill our regular positions. What we've found is that the caseworkers that are leaving us for other jobs aren't leaving us because they hate us, they're leaving us because they get a lot more flexibility and less stress where they're going, to the point that they feel they can help us on a part-time basis. So I would like to establish a pool of 4 part-timers, people that were previously fully employed, fully trained caseworkers. I currently have 2 right now that are willing to do it, and actually through them taking up a full-time spot could do that on a temporary basis, but I would prefer to be able to get back to what our organizational structure is if we can fill those full-time slots when we have people that are eligible and interested in working for us. But also then have that part-time pool to be able to pull from. At this point in time, we have a lot of breakage. There's a lot of 0.1 left. As I said to you before, our overtime is incredibly high. Again, that could be putting pressure on these people for these high caseloads. So it would be able to be funded within the budget. It would also be something that would be eligible for at least 75% reimbursement on an ongoing basis. So what I'm looking for, caseworker titles.
So my question to that is, if you were fully staffed, those wouldn't be necessary.
Right.
So it's always kind of going to be under your budget, because if those people are missing, those people are here, these people you're trying to hire are here.
Yeah.
But if once you're full, there won't be a need for them. Is that, am I understanding that right?
Yes. What I put in the effect on the staffing pattern. Once the impact of the post-COVID era exodus from the workplace subsides and we are able to level out with limited turnover and trained staff, we should require less support from outside of the current number of full-time permanent caseworkers, and this need will be monitored. Excellent.
Yeah, well, I think you almost answered there. It's basically gonna be, I like the concept and your approach, and the bottom line, you're saying there's gonna be minimal increased cost because of what you're gonna gain on the back end.
It's due to the breakage that we
Right.
need this because we don't have people in the positions.
Right, so there's really no extra cost.
Will it actually save them overtime?
I think that it will help save on overtime. I also think it'll help save on the stress
Yeah.
for the people that are staying, for whatever reason they're staying.
You might keep them from staying.
I'm hoping they'll stay longer.
Yeah. Let's see.
Why do you start?
Move it.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. Okay, any other questions? On favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So that has to go through full board, full cycle, right? Yeah. And that is something that Danielle and I had talked about asking for 2023. I felt the urgency to do it up, so thank you very much for hearing me on that. And then we were going to move to 2023 and talk about staffing requests. Is that where you want to go? Sure. Everybody knows Gina. I should also introduce, actually, with us, Tracy Hudson is the Director of Administrative Services. Tracy, take it away. And Becky Palmer is our Head of Accounting, our Accounting Department. They are sort of the backbone for the work that we are showing you here today. They're here to answer any other questions that we can.
So when they got it, you guys get that.
Yep, I already told, there was a question, the last question that was asked, I said, we tried to figure it out, and she's whispering to me, I said, no, you're just kidding. Yep. So, would you like to go ahead?
Okay, I would like to thank you. So for personal request for Office for Aging, at this time, I would like to add 2 part-time aging services aid titles to the staffing pattern. Given the situation that we are truly filling all of our rooms now, we have 11 rooms, so we right now have 9 part-timers. It's to the best benefit, instead of using per diems on those 2 other routes, to really have part-time staff. This is something that I did talk to personnel about and received her blessing in terms of the plan to make the request for the 2 aging services aid position. It truly won't have a budget impact in 2023. However, when it moves forward in the future, we'll see that those individuals will earn steps in longevity, unlike per diem titles do. The other request.
What's the requirements for that job? Is that right off the street, entry level high school, or is there
I might want to-
training requirements for it? You can do it now.
It is a position that's hired right off the street, and the requirement is most certainly having a driver's license and.
Okay, well, that changes the pool. So I was wondering about being able to recruit people into it if you had to have an associate's degree or something. That cut it down.
The driver's license with a good driving record.
So we put Dave in there.
Most certainly, if somebody has experience in social services, that is a true benefit.
Wait, did we decide you were the oldest one for today?
See, Tammy, I wasn't quite clear with what you said, that it's gonna increase the cost on point 1.
This is Gina.
Gina. Well, I've been looking at you, she
Yes.
just started.
She's the
I got
one with the
great-
lawn here.
No offense, Dave.
No, I
Yeah,
apologize.
so right now, we're filling those positions with per diem staff, so per diem positions don't earn steps in longevity. Whereas if we move these to add these 2 positions to part-time, then those individuals will earn those.
And that's the only increase in cost. And what kind of money is that anyway? For longevity and
So in terms of the positions themselves, right now, based on what funding we use, it's various reimbursements that we get, so that could be anywhere from 75 to 90%.
but the longevity, the benefits all are directly right? Starting at
Part-timers
24.
don't receive
24.
benefits.
Let's go to the contract. Yeah. What's that? Part-time. It's very minimal.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Makes sense.
Well, that's what I was trying to find out. Impact. Thank you. Sure. Gina.
Gina, you
Yes,
currently have,
I think this meeting went like 5 minutes too long.
going to 9 part-time and 6 per diem, or leaving the 8 per diem?
Right now, we should have 6 part-time and still maintain the same per diems.
You're
So
definitely
continue
showing
with the
7 part-time and 8 per diem. Are you trading 2 for 2, or you're adding 2
Adding 2,
and leaving
adding
8?
2, correct, adding the per diem.
So you're not decreasing the per diem, you're just increasing the part.
Correct, even with this.
Per diems are pool, though, right?
That's kind of open, it'd be a spot.
Right.
It is a pool. May not, you're right, there either. Pretty cool per diem in when one of the part-timers doesn't show up or can't come, right?
That is
So
correct,
it's a bit of a wash.
yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I have one other request for under personnel. Based on a work study that was performed by the personnel department, it was determined that the work currently assigned to a typist/clerk title truly falls under a senior title. So at this time, my request is to add a senior clerk title and remove a typist/clerk title from the organizational structure under Office for Aging. At this particular moment, based on current projections, the budget impact is $5,387. And as mentioned under previous positions, we should expect 75 to 90% reimbursable dollars under those state and federal funds. That's it. It's time. Sorry, any questions?
So I also have 2 staffing related things to bring to your attention. The first, very much similar to what I've already shared related to the part-timers. Danielle and I worked together to try to come up with another sort of step where we could increase the pool of people that we could recruit from to still help with that caseworker role. And what we've come up with is the title of caseworker assistant. That would be a grade 12, which is 2 grades lower than an actual caseworker. I'm asking for 2 of them. The local share would still be that same, somewhere less than 25%, depending on how the claiming shakes out with the programs that they're assigned to. And again, this would be another thing that I would continue to monitor. I am looking at adding these though to the actual full-time positions and staff. And I think that it'll, best case scenario as we move forward, it might be the thing that prevents me from asking for more caseworkers. It also might be the thing that is a stepping stone for people from, say, our examiner title. They've got a little more than an associate's degree under their belt. They're interested in casework. They would be eligible for these caseworker assistant positions while they're continuing on their schooling, and then they would be eligible for the caseworker role. So those, I've asked for 2 of those. In addition,
In your budget.
it is not included
So
in
it
the
would
budget,
be
this is
added.
2023. Yep,
Okay.
yep. And then similar to what Gina had shared with her typist and the review that had been done by personnel, I had the same situation happen with my staff development coordinator. There is 1 person in that title. We did the job classification questionnaire for that, and I believe that Danielle's intent is to recommend that to increase. So that is something else that will be on the 2023 request moving forward.
So now we'd like to move into a little more detail in regards to the travel plan. We did provide a travel plan for both DSS and OFA staff.
I have copies. Would you like copies of that? Yeah. This collectively covers all of the DSS and OFA staff. As a reminder, DSS does receive funding through the state for training. is for both professional development as well as our required trainings. It depends on how much training. It's been completely funded over these last few years because we haven't had very many trainings to go to. And the small amount of cost that is associated with our state needed training, which is $14 a day, has been not charged to us because it's been virtual. So there's been more wiggle room than what I anticipate that will be back into spending.
So at this time, our intent is really to highlight some of these trainings that for the OFA director on page 2, under the travel plan under management leadership training, you'll see there listed AAA NYSOFA Leadership Institute. This is something that is held annually. In 2023, it's expected to be facilitated in the spring. And the location right now is tentatively in Finger Lakes region. And so that particular event is out of county and would request, would need a permission for overnight stay. On page 3, under professional development training, you'll see age concerned unitis, which is held typically in Albany. I do hold a position on the Association on Aging Board, which facilitates this training. And there's always encouragement for board members to be present, to stay, and to certainly help in the facilitation of the event. This event again is held in Albany, and although with special permission, given the fact that it is miles radius for travel. So certainly I request permission for county travel and also overnight stay. On page 3, there's also the Caregiving and Respite Conference, Caregiver Conferences, and the National Respite Lifespan Conference. All of these are held throughout the state and various states and locations. I don't have the details of those events yet, but most certainly if they are fall outside of the travel policy and mileage, most certainly I would like to have permission for out-of-county travel and overnight stay. And then the last one is the Adirondack Health Institute North Country Leadership Summit. That's typically held in the fall in Lake Placid. It just barely meets the travel policy. And so certainly a request for out-of-county travel and overnight stay for 2023 at this time. So I guess given just the language within the travel policy, that it would be the best interest for
Similarly for me, except that we somehow have divided up what categories we put things in. On page 2, there is the Executive Leadership Institute for Commissioners that had previously always been held in the same area of the state at a place called White Eagle. It's actually being held in Lake George this year, but stay for that is covered for me by the state, but it would be overnight travel. Of course, if there was ever a time that I did have to go farther away, it would be the same situation. We also hold a policy forum through NYPWA, the association that DSS is represented by statewide. There are occasions when that is an overnight meeting and people are encouraged to stay for that. As you know, I have been president most recently. I am still on the board at this time, but I will not be after this following year, unless they do some kind of special draft, I guess. And then we have also conferences, one in the winter and one in the summer. I do also often request to be able to stay at those. The summer conferences, I have only stayed at in the past through the association paying for me to be there. But I do find it to be very beneficial in terms of the time that I'm able to stay there and speak with other officials from the state outside of our actual training sessions. The winter conference, I have received permission to stay in the past, and that has been through our budget, because that is Albany in the winter. And I've actually been down there in the past when county cars have been crowded. So those would be situations where I would also be, I can't project for sure how they'll be held in this coming year, but in the event that it is offered, that would be something I would like to stay overnight for, and it would be able to be fit within our budget and the training allotment that we receive from the state. The only other thing that I want to draw your attention to on page 3 of 3, one of the things in professional development training says management leadership development series. And this is something that I would like to engage in as well for all of the leaders, all of the managers within DSS and OFA. We have had this type of training in the past. We've had it in the past with specific trainers. Then we have moved on and received training through a variety of other people. I am looking for us right now to do a training needs assessment and determine where our areas of need are rather than guessing, like, this is what I think we need to work on. We're going to be asking our staff what kinds of things we're strong in. And I anticipate that once we have those results, we'll be looking to do some sort of a larger planned contractual sort of training in 2023 that I do anticipate will need your attention at that time.
In-house training,
It will be in-house.
so
Yes.
you'd be hiring a contractor.
Yes. Yes. I imagine the dollar value of that and procurement policy will require me to bring that to you. Those are the things for us to highlight. After all that said, do you still want to look at our budget?
All I need from you that's gonna help me is where do you feel you are from last year, or increase or decrease?
Most recently, within these last couple of months, we're trending very high on the cost for homelessness, the housing, paying for people to stay in the temporary housing situations, which are most often motels. And I just went, I think that's really primarily the area that we're spending most higher in where most of our focus is concerned. The rest of our concern really is about staffing. So that's not necessarily something that you can see in our appropriation lines, but it is just that housing. And Becky and I were talking about having another cost comparison spreadsheet available, updated in October, so that we can get another good look at how our spending revenue seems to be shaping up for the year. I don't have that. Our accounts start on page 14. About a third of the page. 6010 TSS admin. The first 5 of those are all just based on trend. It's trend related projections, the repayments from various scenarios where we provide services and people do need to reimburse us for them. Repayments of daycare is childcare. We did lower that. That is the eligibility for childcare assistance has been changed tremendously in this year. And so we anticipate there will be fewer people that have a share of cost that they're responsible for. So we lowered that.
Before that family assistance you've raised, so say, you just think there's gonna be more there.
This is right in the area of revenue. We think that will be more spending. Sure that we'll have a conversation on it. The general services, Department of Social Services at the bottom of that page. Those are transfers that come in through our cash receipts and go to the treasurer, I believe. And also that would be related to people that are paying their child support. So that is trending a little bit higher. Next page. Interest and earnings for Department of Social Services. There are some small accounts that would be lumped in there. Minor sales, they're so minor that we had to ask what they were. It's a surplus items that are sold at auction. Obviously with regard to all of the furniture that has been replaced this year with that heat ARPA money, there will be more going to auction this year.
Don't bring up chairs, just don't have no chairs.
Yeah, well, I hear you.
After yesterday.
Bring it up. Bring it up.
Nope.
Talk more about it.
I'm afraid you'll put me in an electric chair. So no.
Miscellaneous, local sources, these are areas where if we have to issue a stop payment or avoid on something, the gifts and donations is related to our food pantry fund. And that's something that appears in the budget now and has not in the past. We worked through all of that agony last year.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
State aid, you'll see a repetition, the state aid categories related to our spending will be mirrored just to a large degree in federal as we get into the next page, but these are all the state aid portions that are that we are able to claim and receive funding towards.
The question, when you were back at repayments of childcare, you got it going down. But in state aid for childcare, you've got to go up, they're in opposite ways, and I don't know the connection. So maybe
That was repayment, this is the amount of money that a person who's receiving the assistance has to pay back to us. I envision decreasing because the
decreasing because
eligibility
the
is
eligibility is
widening.
going to be widening. That's the
And eligibility
connection.
is
Okay,
widening, so I think that, yep.
thank you.
Yep. The 6010-3601 in state aid medical assistance, there is a bit of a change there. You would see in that look back. This was something that was a procedural change that we learned of with updated training through the state. So it's not really a big sway. It's just a matter of how we are reflecting it.
Yes. Procedure, the way that we handle it and the way that we're required to report it on journal vouchers. It's now accurately reflecting the fact that our Medicaid costs are, we're getting what we're gonna get, and any money that we receive from say recipients needs to go back to pay back that money. DOH.
State aid for social services admin, you'll see that that is increased. That is actually my category right now. I'm not seeing the increase. What that is. We anticipated that it would because we would be getting for higher salaries, we would get more administration, so that could be an area for us to flag moving forward.
So you get back to us on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Part of our budget prep happened before the resolution was passed last month that added funds back into our point one.
Yeah, timing's everything.
So it threw off some number. It made us fluctuate on that. Then all the rest of the state aid, again, based on what we think will be happening with spending, it's a trend. You heard Mike talk about STSJP and revenue for him. It comes to us as revenue first. State aid for juvenile delinquent, that is largely where STSJP is consumed.
Some of these actually capped. I mean, even though you get a percentage,
Yes.
some of them are actually in there, some of
Yes.
them at their cap.
Yes.
On the budget side, yeah.
Yeah, daycare, for instance, we did an allocation, and we used to, many years ago, budget what we thought we would be asked for, and so therefore the county offset that expense for people within the county. We then, through tougher times, or what we thought were tough times at that point, limited to only spending what we receive in aid. So that one is capped, that we also cap our spending to that. But in something like the state aid for safety net, that is not capped. Unfortunately, that is the spending that happens for people that, a lot of like these single adults that are in hotels or people that are eligible for cash assistance and do not have children. That's where we receive that 21% reimbursement from the state, but it is without a cap. It's whatever amount of spending they're required to do through those mandates. And again, back down through for the federal aid, there was that first one, I believe, the federal aid or stimulus aid. I think that is where we had reflected ESG in the past. And we will be carrying over something probably from 2022 into 2023, but we'll have to do that with an adjustment after the budget is passed. We do, this is interesting. So we do have an increase in the federal aid for social services admin. This must be reflective that we get more aid from the feds than we do from the state. That's what that situation is that we've just spoken about.
Okay.
If you have any questions on any of these things, let me know. Federal aid for the food stamp program admin, that would be a capped amount. There is no state aid for food stamp administration. And now that I'm looking back to double check myself, but I know the state does not pay us to administer that program. The top of page 16, federal aid LFS, that is has always been one of our larger areas of flexible spending. That is one of the things where we break out how we pay for some of our staff would be reimbursed through that, as well as contracting with other providers, but that amount has been flat for the last several years. It is though it follows, there are 3 plans operating at the same time. They all are broken up into different fiscal years. So it gets pretty funky as the numbers show there, but we haven't gotten an increase in this probably 10 years. The rest continue on with, again, looking a lot about the trends. The HEAP, the 4641, 674641, HEAP administration has increased happily over the last couple of years. I hope it continues in that way. There was a point where we were not getting enough administrative funds to pay for what it costs us to administer the programs, and now we're getting more than we need to administer the programs. The number for 22 amended budget does include the I believe it does, the ARPA funds, the ARPA funds that we received. And of course, that would have been taken back out moving forward, but it has increased because we anticipate that slight increase.
Will you have a place to spend that this year?
It depends on what their guidance is about it.
Yep.
If they're just strictly limiting us to staff time, or if they are allowing us to purchase other things that relate to HEAP administration.
You don't have to speak.
No, I don't anticipate anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. No.
The federal aid assistance and opportunity 4789, that is where the ERAP administrative monies had come in the past, and where we will be putting the RSP funding that we just passed through last month, right? Yeah. So that will be appearing in there, but that is funding that was approved, grant funding that was approved by the state. Skip space and move on to page 17 and pick up with aging.
Here, that's under 6772. At the top. The 1972 line is based on the contributions and the cost shares that we receive throughout a year. The funding sources that we receive under the Older Americans Act does require us to seek out contributions from participants. And so at this particular time, we did make a slight increase to that line. And that's just based on the fact that we did add in more frontline services like personal care. So with more participation, where our expectation is that we will receive more cost shares and more contributions. The line right below that, 0.2705, this line here is actually a new line in the budget, and this line here is another like an agreement that we have with the treasurer's office. This line here reflects outside individuals, donations, contributions. What we're seeing over the last year is that we're being named in people's memorials for contributions to be received, and so we did create that budget line to incorporate all the revenue that we received. in that. The next two lines I'm referring to is 0.3772 state aid for programs on aging, and then below that, 1, 2, 3 lines later is 0.4772. That's the federal aid for programs on aging. Both state aid and federal aid, those lines incorporate several multivarious funding sources that we received through the state. And as you can see here, they do show slight decreases, and that's because we're not expecting to receive the state or the federal COVID stimulus dollars in 2023.
So one of those lines must be 2022. The money was included in there, and then that was a one-time shot. It won't be in next year's budget, right? Gotcha.
That's all for revenue. Expenses.
Looking up on page 72, start with DSS admin. Detail again, roughly the bottom third of the page. Our point ones. The increase in point ones is strictly about the tenure and steps increments that will come plus the 2.5 that was budgeted or bargained for through the agreements. The part-time, regular earnings part-time, I'm confused by that.
Those would be for the heat.
Oh, okay, so at the time of the budget, I had asked for us to budget for, we have in our staffing structure, 2 temps for heat that can help us, and that's where that would be. I feel like it's a good interchange to instead have that there, the advent of the heat and homeless on-call. When I asked for that, I felt like it would be a swap out. So that can come out, that 48,000 can come out of that area. But we have already increased, right?
Part of it.
on-call.
And part of that is also for the foster parent trainers.
Aha, so it can all come out. Thank you very much. Also part of that, the foster care expansion includes us hiring people part-time to come in and do the training of our prospective foster parents. There is an inclusion of that. We'll get to you with what that difference is
Okay.
for how that can be adjusted.
And then the one that you were gonna get back to me for, that one was just on the federal, that's all answered.
Yep.
Thank you.
Buyouts and incentives, we think we've got quite a few people that are eligible. More eligible in 23 than we had in 22. That number is reflected there. The on-call pay, that increase is a result of, we had always had the Child Protective Services on-call. We now have established the heat and homeless on-call, so it is that bump there, but that is offset in revenue as well. The 0.9s that end at the bottom of that page and start at the top of the next one are all things that we just do what we're told. Which takes us to computer equipment, 6010 2020. These are all items that we worked through with Terry, looking at what we have and anticipating what our needs would be. Some of this is just wear and tear, replacement of things. It's dramatically decreased because of all of the extra equipment we were able to purchase this year. The Dell monitors are the biggest chunk there, and I believe that is related to our folks that have laptops also have a monitor, but they're not able to split their screen between those two, which allows them to move material back and forth. So this is to get them another monitor, which will increase their efficiency. I work with 2 monitors. It's amazingly easier when you're popping back and forth between different documents or different sources of information. So that is something that we have had in there. I think would be helpful for them. The 2070 equipment vehicles, that is something that we await any decision and discussion that happens here amongst this group. So at this point, we have not budgeted for anything there. Telephone, slight increase, and it does include our cell phones. Mailing, we're seeing that cost trending down. Various reasons there on things that we are mailing. I know at a state level for DSS, we are trying to advocate for the state to allow us to serve notices and material to people via email rather than the standard postal service, because we are required to send them out. But we also receive a lot of them back. People have emails that they can look at all the time, as opposed to needing to like someplace in one location and have received their mail there. Any questions on any of this? The shredding is the contracted services 4068. That's a relatively new advent where we have cans that are dropped off here that we're able just to put our material into, and they get taken away in a confidential manner and it's destroyed that way rather than us having to roll it through all of the shredders here. And that is a benefit to other departments within the county also. It's been used a lot. We've heard through archives also. For instance, I just cleaned my office out last week and put about, I don't know, probably five big things of paper, shoved them right on in there. It's a lot easier than having to take care of the information the other way. It's a pretty efficient process. Maintenance contract, these are for copiers. We did have one contract that we were able to end this year. That is related to the meal site, home meal site. The education, training, and staff development, 4170, that's at the bottom of the page. It's $40,000 that we traditionally do receive from the state for our training and staff development.
Office supply, others that good for you.
Yes, the cost of the items that we're ordering are increasing.
Paints are envelopes and everything.
The ink,
The envelopes are ridiculous right now.
I got a question back to your vehicles. Does it have an actual,
She waiting for you, she said.
no, for this year? Actual,
oh, we haven't actually paid for them yet, have we?
I haven't seen it.
We haven't received, DSS hasn't received cars.
Not that I've seen.
none of those.
The money would be encumbered right now.
The money isn't covered.
It'll be a-
I knew that half of them came. I didn't know if the rest of them came or not.
Or are her three in that group?
So yours may not have come yet.
I don't think they're in that group.
Okay, that's why I was just wondering about the act. And of course, whatever we put on that line, 3/4 of that goes on the revenue side too.
Yes,
So
that's right.
So before we jump to the, I just caught it, the overtime is projected. Wait, I don't know.
That has been tremendous. It's the added caseload size that our workers have had to balance.
how many actual vacancies do you have?
In the caseworker title, right now, we have 5 vacancies, and we have 2 more that will be leaving us shortly. One resignation came in last week. Another one, I think this might be her last week. So we will have 7 caseworkers. We have 4 examiners. Vacant.
It's a real problem. So overtime.
It's a huge problem. Very, very small. I used to worry about the people we serve. Now I'm worrying about the people who are serving them. More than
Well,
anything. So then moving on to page 74, advertising publicity. These are public notices, legal notices. The cost of one of the ones that we had to do this year was high. We thought that might be,
It was just over $1,000 for a run in the Times Union
and that was required by
family court order.
work that was being done to terminate the rights of a child that was in foster care, and it's a requirement to put an ad in a large paper where it's circulating in the area that parent was last known to have been. Somebody that is not engaging with us. Mileage and expenses we had ourselves increased that a bit, and then between that and the the new projections that you put in, it is up 71,000 there. Computer supplies, that is an increase, the only law books that we used to be able to purchase for some of our staff and also for Roger's office are now electronically updated. That's a reflection of that, as well as a program that's used in Office for the Aging. And then this subcontractor line, 60104440 or 4400 is Genus.
0.4400 line really defines all of the observation contracts and fee for service programs. You will see here that there is a slight budget line decrease, and that's truly a reflection of the restructuring of our unmet needs funding, as well as a lower projection of meals being served in 2023. Just to kind of give you just a brief synopsis of what you see here, the share of meals is going up 40 cents in 2023 based on meal cost, utility cost, kitchen food, staff, disposable items. So in 2022, you're paying $5.60 per meal. In 2023, the expectation budgeted amount is $6 per meal.
I got a question on that because yesterday the sheriff had lowered the cost to meals. I know we brought it up as to if that was possible. So if it's more per meal, are we serving, and I assume we're even serving more people instead of less people. So it might just be.
Not serving the same population, the same people.
No, his costs, his whole cost is in there, or am I wrong?
You know, there was a discussion yesterday, and I don't.
We tried to bring it up and I don't, maybe he didn't know. We were trying to figure if the meals, because we know there's an inmate population, and that would make sense if it's not, but I didn't know. He had to buy all the food.
My personal trips to the grocery store. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
a little up, so I just.
more than 40 cents a meal.
Yeah, so I just wasn't sure yesterday he was comfortable with the number.
Because he lowered it. And so I didn't know if, like our fuel line, everybody buys the fuel comes out of one line and everybody buys from that. So I didn't know if meals was all the food and your portion is in his number. I have to figure that out.
Can I add to that though, that the cost that he gives us includes the cost of his staff. So that would have been included in the food line for the
Right.
sheriff's budget.
Right, no, that's true, but I don't know how his food line can be down.
Yeah, that is.
I'm trying to relate, make sure we're not missing something, that's all. So. No, thank you.
Yeah. They're different meals.
Market 32 is up 40 cents.
So a couple of other areas in that section, we are continuing GoGo Technologies contracting at least the beginning of 2023. And again, this is utilizing the unmet needs funds that I've spoken to about earlier in the year. And we do have the addition of the NYBT media contract that was added in 2022. And that is for the publication of the Community Connections newspaper. That's the pre-insert inside the Free Press. In the previous year, Senior Times newspaper, you'll see that's kind of broken out. That used to be all 100% in postage line under 60, 10, 40, 20. So we do have that broken out in this section here under 40.
The GoGo green there, that's the part you're talking about with the technology.
Correct. Yes.
How's that work?
We are still assessing. It's not as fluent as we had hoped.
I just checked, the sheriff got his revenue at 123, Gina's got her expense at 126. I don't care which number we pay, those two numbers are tough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do they go?
Well, the sheriff's probably not feeding one meal a day now, so they got more time to work out. So to generate the revenue.
Well, those meal ones, her expenses is revenue, so they should be the same, whichever number you pick, they should be the same.
Okay, to move on. DSS. So speaking of the double, the 60104402 is the subcontract to the sheriff. This is what we reimburse them for to cover the deputy in the lobby, as well as the addition of an investigator that they had added on back at the time that we initiated this contract. It does reflect a 2.5% COLA. That was approved. Interdepartment, that is the IT, but we reimbursed to IT for having one of their people based in our office. Last year, we had not increased that at the time of the budget was passed, so we're catching up with what that increase would have been, as well as them having 2.5% COLA. The miscellaneous category is largely fingerprinting for our staff, and I believe we cover it for foster parents as well. As well as the cost for certificates for the youth that we have this year, and also for any of the adults that we're working with that do not have their documents. Everything else looks like it's trending. The accounting auditing is up $500. That's the countywide indirect cost allocation plan. That audit is paid for through the assess. The second up from the bottom, the 60-10 4625.01 is where we will end up carrying over ESG money from this year's budget. And the bottom one is that ARPA money where we will not be collecting anything this coming year. Any questions on any of that? The next page is the foster care recruitment. These are the funds, the accounting funds that were received through the American Rescue Plan and have been allotted for us for foster care recruitment, as well as the child care assistance, the added recruitment through the Southern Adirondack Child Care Network, establishing that contract with them. This is money that will carry over also through into 2024 or into 2023, but we have until 2024 to spend it. The end of 2024? Yes. Okay. The chargebacks that are listed there, those are where the state provides us a service and then charges us for it. And so one of the examples of that would be the child support helpline. When they put that into place, it dramatically decreased the volume of calls that we received. So it is a service. There are some other things where we were able to utilize software system and run checks for information on people that are paying, like the Social Security system, to see what kind of income people have and verify that when they're giving us their eligibility information. So it's another one of those areas that's impacted by the chargebacks. Daycare, we budget what we believe we will receive. That is 100% funded, as we just talked about before. The services for recipients has increased, or we are increasing that again based on trend. That would be again back to direct monies and services that are provided to reimburse for rent and that sort of thing for people that are eligible for it. The Medicaid, the $642.90, that is the Medicaid weekly share the county has to pay to the state. Family assistance is another one of the categories that would be on trend. This again relates to people's immediate needs, and that is, we are having an increase of one-time requests for people as opposed to people that are eligible to stay on for recurring assistance. Our increase has been more about people that are qualified for a one-off. They maybe have a higher income level, but because of their state of emergency, they are eligible for this. But that again is 100% funds. That's TNF. I just caught myself. Did I invert foster care daycare, or am I on path? This is foster care now,
You
right?
just did family assistance.
Yep.
And what I would say to that is not only is it our TANF population in the assistance programs division, but there's also a lot of expenses included in that for our children's services side with regard to families or children that are eligible under our services EAF program. So increases in that area are due to the fact that the state has recently increased what they feel we should be paying our foster care providers, which then also reflects into what we need to be paying for adoption subsidies. So you're gonna see that reflected in the lines for A6109 and A6119.
And so that was where, what I was asking you, the 6119, if it was foster care or if it was childcare, because of the way that the wording is on it, but that would be the foster care expenses, and then our foster care numbers are down, but the amount that is being paid to them is raised.
And as long as you're running through this, what's the real difference between 6055 and 6119? Daycare versus child care, is there not an overlap in that, or is there?
There is no overlap, they're very different. 6055 is our daycare costs. And the 6119, although it says childcare, really is referring to foster care.
Okay, all right.
That is what I just caught myself on.
Okay.
I'm worried that I had confused it, but I hadn't, I just did afterwards.
While we're here, can I ask? The daycare expenses at $750. It looks like the associated revenue, 3655 and 725. Can they both be 750 or is there?
And be right back.
They can be.
And the childcare one, the expense is 3.6 million. And the two revenues that stick out to me are 1,670,000 and 1,250,000 for a total of 2,920,000. Are there other revenue lines, or can those two be bumped up to the 3.6 as well?
I think that I'm sure they can't be bumped up to the 3.6 because
It's not a dollar for dollar one.
Right, there would be a local share for our foster care costs. There might be one other category that we pay some foster care in, and therefore receive.
I would want to look at that a
So
little
the
bit.
daycare is 100% of the childcare is not.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
So 25,000 at least in the revenue side for
Thank you for daycare.
daycare at this point. So
Yep.
thanks.
The last category, there's the juvenile delinquent, that is raise the age. We put in for a budget for raise the age. There's it's always a crapshoot of how many youth will come through that process. But then not only do they need to commit some sort of a crime and come into our system, they then need to be referred to us and or the youth bureau for us to draw down any of those funds. It's different than the way the money may show in the probation department. We're only able to charge back if we are providing service. Next page, the state training school, that is the ongoing saga that hopefully will be over within the next year, but where we are waiting for 8 months of care for a youth that was placed in the custody of the state in 2021. We will receive that bill in the spring of 2023. We are not able to precisely figure out how much that will be.
It's interesting meeting.
I know. State training school. Yep.
We'll turn around.
Yep. In the safety net area, you see the, what includes also the code blue costs. Those are funds that we receive 100% reimbursement for. However, it also requires us to write a plan and be able to foresee the future of what the spending will be. So we are working on an adjustment from our last year's budget, capture more of the costs that came in for that. We anticipate that will increase this year. And this is where I recently spoken to you about the open door mission, not providing code blue services this year. Salvation Army is saying that they are on board for it. They, however, do not have a building for it yet. So we're a little concerned, but we are working with them for a budget, and we will be submitting that budget back through to the state, and the state understands from us that we've had this major shift here. Heat is the next area. That's a small amount. That is something though that we're required to have in there when we have to issue direct payments or support a two-party check.
Yes.
Emergency aid for adults brings us on home for our last category. And again, that would be a trend, and it's a good one because that is a 100% cost for the county. So that's down 10,000 from last year. And then you go to the bottom of page 78, the aging.
As you can see here, just on the bottom of page 78, our focus and expectations not 2023, so we can zero that line out. Which leads us to turning to page 79. On page 79, again, all, majority of these lines are given to us. But jumping down to 0.4291, I'd like to share with you that that is a new line that's added into the budget this year. And this does correlate to the line that I spoke of earlier. This line here used to be an interdepartmental incidental fund. And now we have truly incorporated these funds into the county budget. We do have items in here like our WCKM radio advertisement, an online on-site public broadcast that we hold every year for our fall festival. So in this particular line, just to let you know that we do not have any, there's no local cost share to that.
That's the $4,200.
Correct.
That's all it is.
No, that is a line that is used to cover our large events, like the senior picnic, our fall festival, our pop-up events, any type of outreach that we.
It's a change in the way that we do with the budget officer, and I really appreciate Gina,
Well,
Becky, and Tammy's cooperation, because it's something that, because we've always done it that way. They were open to a conversation about getting it on the books and through the normal process, and I appreciate that, so thank you.
And I did send an email out on the 440.18. You're going to see that there's a budgeted amount there of 3,000. That actually is data entry error, and it should be on the 0.440.PC, that miscellaneous petty cash line. And that line there does correlate to the line I spoke of earlier. That's the
Gifts and donations.
correct gifts and donations. That concludes the Office for Aging and DSS budget summary.
Stay tuned next week.
I missed my mark.
Was there?
Oh,
Whoa.
Right.
You're up by 3 minutes.
It was because Gina took a little extra.
That's what she just told me. I had to go.
I didn't know if you wanted to say something yourself.
There.
I just wanted to,
She's not here.
whatever you would.
Said you. Or a check. They took her, she missed her.
Talking about the shredding for your own department here, public health just mentioned in there. Shredding, they're looking to go for that. Have they contacted these jobs? Coordination with two departments and all this?
I'm not aware of it, but this is actually a contract that we were given information to Sue Clayton. So perhaps Sue has spoken with public health about that shredding.
I don't know if they've reached out to Sue or not, but we can reach out to them.
I guess when Tammy mentioned she's already doing that.
They're already coming here, yeah.
So they're tight.
Sure, everything's done that.
It's only paper and farms are allowed to party, so I don't know why we just don't have a party. We all watch it, party, we know it's left and so we're good.
Probably.
No, but we can take it to a farm. Or it's paper.
Is that a building you want to destroy?
To save the county that kind of money.
Thank you for your time today and for the consideration that you give me for the letter to you all as well. You want me to go down and get her? Okay. I can go knock on her door.
Why not? Nothing hurts.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
I don't know. Hey, breakfast for myself, but you got your own.
So we just, so we're just doing more under finances.
You don't get angry? Oh my God, they invented that word for doing it. It's like.
An hour after regular time, you are hungry again. It's just what it is.
I'm hungry.
What page did you?
I know, I have to agree.
31.
So should you have?
No, usually it's just my feet are.
We're gonna join the human services and we're gonna go into.
Just finance at the moment while we do our.
Okay. Yes. Maybe we'll be done by lunchtime. I'm like, oh my gosh, just pushed yourself.
So my budget is not as big as the ones you've been listening to, so it should be really quick. I start on, my revenues are on page 3 and 4. And there's not much of a change from 2022 to 2023 that I can foresee. Other than the miscellaneous government funds.
That's my question.
Yeah, and that will be, that was the grant money that we had.
That shouldn't be grant money. That should be the money you're charging the towns for assessment.
Oh, okay, I'm
That's why I
sorry.
was wondering.
My
if it's
bad.
zero, because you're still doing something.
No, my bad, yes, we are, and we will do more, sorry about that.
So at least what you're doing should be in there.
Yes,
What you
yes.
haven't signed yet doesn't need to be in here.
Right.
Until you show.
Okay, what number we at here?
The bottom of page 3 under miscellaneous government funding, the 115 from the last year. That should be.
That's coming
That
back.
should be a real number.
That should be a real number, that should be the, well, that may be more,
Right.
and that's something.
No, what was last year's?
It should be 115.
You're right.
150.
It's currently 115, so we know that's coming back.
Yep.
Good, thank you.
Yep,
Okay.
sorry about that.
Right direction.
So that's the only major change in my revenues. Expenses start on page 31 into 32.
And drop this to 4.
Okay, you'll see the, there's no major changes in my point ones as budgeted right now currently. I do have some changes in, or some additions in point 2. We haven't ordered anything in a while, and we'll be discussing this shortly, but I do need a couple file drawer cabinets and possible workstations. Actually, the file drawer cabinets were in my 5-year plan that was back in 2018, I think, when we had to do that. But we do need to get some. I always try to get as much as I can from buildings and grounds, whatever somebody throws away, discards, whatever. But we do need a couple wardrobe cabinets. I have received a couple chairs from buildings and grounds that were recycled from social services. So
Careful.
I guess my question on that would be if we're moving public health to Burgoyne, I don't know if their stuff is moving or if there's a lot of new stuff. It may be.
I've already got my eyes on public defender, possibly. I've spoken, they've got, they're moving and they're.
Okay.
and stuff, so
So.
I got my feelers out there.
Well,
See what we can
yeah.
do.
Off your game, it's better, Jared.
I've heard that. I would hate to-
The
I
parts
hate-
are expensive.
The parts are expensive.
I hate to have everybody get too comfortable, you know? Be on our toes. But the regular 0.4s, you will see a drastic change, of course, in my office supplies, that's mainly because of the silly envelopes and paper that we have to purchase. That has gone through the roof this past year. Pretty much everything else that is status quo. I have added a little bit, I've doubled my education training. We now have an assessor in our office that needs some continuing ed, so I've included that in there also. So that he can get his continuing ed. Him and I both attended the Assessors Association meeting. That's why I wasn't able to attend my regular finance meeting. It was held local in Lake George. Try to make the best of those situations when they're that close to attend those trainings. So encumber a large expense.
Laura, your appraiser, do you use that person for county businesses or is it for the towns that hire or contract through you?
The assessor is for the towns that we do assessment services for.
So the cost of the training should be applied towards the cost of having an appraiser.
Right.
And the towns pick that up anyway.
Right, there's
They're
a
gonna pick
reimbursement fee. So, yeah.
Yeah.
they reimburse us.
And the workstations, that's just desk or does it actually include way more than that?
No, just desks. We're
Okay.
pretty basic in our office.
Yeah, that's what I
We
thought,
got
but I wanted to
that's
check.
nothing that complex.
Thank you.
So there's not any major changes across the board on that. Just to go over my travel plans. The 2023 budget, I usually always attend our county directors conference. There is one that's usually held in conjunction with NISAC. I did not attend that this year. It was held in March and I was not here. It's a 3-day conference. It's usually the same time NISAC is. It's in Albany, again, usually right at the same time. Snow is coming and things like that, and I usually request to be able to stay down there. I do sit on our board where we do have additional meetings. I am secretary for New York State Assessors, New York State County Directors Association. And then also our County Directors Conference is in mid-October, it'll be coming up next month. And that's actually this year it's going to be in Auburn. That's 3 to 4 days, depending on where it's located and travel and how long it takes to get there and back. That's also in my budget for next year. That will be this week, or excuse me, this year it's the day after Columbus Day and it's out in Auburn. And then it goes on to say the county assessor needs continuing ed classes, so those are also included in the budget. That's that. Now, do you want my wish list?
Yeah, we need to hear the wish list.
Okay. Doesn't everybody get a wish list?
Yes.
So my wish list this year is I would like to, I have been in contact with a couple supervisors who may be looking for assessment services as of the 1st of January. In doing that and to be able to provide those assessment services, I would like to make my full-time or my part-time assessor full-time. I would like to hire a real property appraisal aide at a grade 13. Now, this person will be starting out with basic education for data collection, assessment services that we can provide to the towns. And it's a entry-level position for this type of real property aid, where they can be learning throughout the next 2 to 3 years, possibly become an assessor themselves and move on. Because in the year of 2025, that's the year of reappointment for most of your town assessors and for myself also. I do believe we will be having some retire, other things may have, whatever. So there may be more need for assessment services, either at the county level or more at your town level. So this is my pitch to assist in getting to that goal, because it is a 2 to 3 year period to get the training and get everything.
So what is the cost for those two things?
$75,200.
That's with benefits.
That's without that.
No.
The grade 13 is 45,000, and the part-time to the full-time is 30.
But there'd be chargebacks to the towns that came out.
Right, yes,
Right.
this is,
I
yeah,
understand that would offset it, but when we're figuring the offset,
I understand.
when we were figuring the offset, we had that counted 115,000 in revenue that was already coming. So is that 115,000 in revenue along with the new revenue?
plus new
Is that how
revenue.
you got to the $12 per parcel? Because if you left 115,000 out, that's a lot to leave out to get to that. I just want to make sure
The
we're accurate.
150 is where we sit currently, and then for each additional town we take on, it's $12 per parcel. So
Well, it would be the same to whatever the other towns are too.
well, everybody has a different number of parcels.
Right, so per
Right.
parcel would be the same price.
Yeah, yep.
But if we left 115,000 out in revenue,
Mhm.
and you're just using the new towns, it would
Right.
change, that's all. I want to make sure all the numbers were accurate, so neither the county nor the town, it should be equal.
Right, so if
But
it's,
you got $75,000 additional cost, 11,000 parcels. That's only 7,000 parcels. So the cost overall.
Well, no, because you still have all the bennies to come into that.
No, she had this, I thought that was.
No, it's not.
So you get all right, get the total cost.
Right, so I just want to make sure that the $12 you came to covered everything.
Yeah.
It needs to cover everything, but the revenue has to be included too.
right, yes, it has to be included in revenue, but it couldn't.
So how many parcels and Bob Hankey said, Bob, is Argyle gonna change at the same time, or is that still a year away?
No way, we're probably a year away.
What's that?
We're probably a year away.
Okay, so you have 3 towns. So we need the total number of parcels for the 3 towns. And to get that revenue to add in the offset, whatever.
Right.
It just, it's was my same question to the DA yesterday. He says, I got all sorts of money, but no, you're not paying the pennies. It doesn't make sense. I mean, they need to really offset for it to work.
For the towns that are considering, do they have to opt out of the elected position into the appointed position?
They're already appointed.
Most of them.
Right,
don't
that's
have
what I'm saying,
elected
but they
positions.
had to do that.
If you were an elected board, you would have to opt out. If you wanted to-
Right, that's what I'm saying. So anybody who was elected can't take advantage of it.
Well, you can if you opt out.
Good.
You have
Yeah,
to
that's
opt out.
not what I said. I said if they have an elected board, they
Right.
can take advantage until they opt
Right.
out.
Same thing, we have one town in the southern part of the county that has a sole elected assessor, and they have nobody running on the ballot this year. So they have a couple people that are doing write-ins. I don't know how that's gonna work out there. They do have somebody filling it as a acting assessor right now, that also covers White House. So, I mean, they're covered for now, but I don't know what's gonna happen in the future.
We thought we had problems. Okay.
So then my last ask is I would like to have a new position, a similar position to what I had prior, as a deputy director of real property tax service. This would be a grade 15. This would be somebody that would be training for succession planning on my retirement. So, but in order for somebody to be appointed, you have to be appointed by New York State. They have certain guidelines. You have to have so much training, so much background. And I'm just trying to work that person in so to kind of.
Would you limit the position that they're in now? About the salary?
I did not, because it's only a clerk at grade 7, and I mean, I can eliminate it for a year or 2, but it probably would come back as things slide up. When I
Well, if you
became,
retired.
when I became county director, I didn't fill my position. I just kept a clerk and an account clerk. So I did not take the route. But it all depends on how much more assessment services we take on, you know.
There's no assessors out there getting trained in the pipeline. There's gonna be a lot of towns gonna be out there.
It's statewide. It's really, I
I think
mean,
the bigger question on this though is a board question. Because yes, we want succession planning, but when you do it this way, and I'm not for or against this way, but then we are allowing our department head to decide their successor. We have to buy into that. Because you're gonna train them and get them there, just like we did with public health. The person gets the training and everything gets there, and that's your new person. It's the same idea. You have to get all that training and get there. You can't pay for all that training and get them there and then decide, oh, we want somebody different. We can, but I think.
Our policy is always trying to be when we're gonna hire someone, we go out to bid, go out to advertise for it, and see what we get. We may get someone that's fully qualified and trained already.
That's my question. So do we want to go through having a deputy and paying for that training and get them there and then decide to do that and let's.
The problem is you may never find anyone.
It's a request as part of the whole big
Right.
personnel package that
So-
you decide.
And I just want the board though to look at it, not just at the cost price or what the ask is what is our belief on how we hire the next person that takes that place. It's hard to go 3/4 of the way down the road and not finish.
I have discussed all these with Danielle and I have vetted everything with Danielle and personnel prior to the interview.
Anything else for Laura? You coming up front, Matt? Call personnel over. I lost my quorum, so. Oh, Bob, you're filling.
Okay, I'm sorry, to be quick, okay? Really quick, yes. Civil service, it was only $2,100 in revenue, nothing to look at there. People, nothing to look at here.
That's what we did personnel last year. There's nothing to look at.
I believe my revenue is on page 5.
Yes.
And again, there are no changes to the revenues. Civil service exam fees, approximately 2,100 for that. EAP, again, we work with the towns and villages, we get revenue from that, and the interdepartmental revenue is a little bit, I believe,
It offsets your salary.
right. Any questions on revenue?
35.
And Mr. Hankey is for both.
You are important. Yeah.
You probably
Big deal.
big door.
You're too.
Okay, okay. Just want to make sure we get it right.
So really the only increase in my expenses are on the, I don't know if you want me to go line for line.
No.
Okay, otherwise. Printing went up from $150 to $300. The education and training went up from $47.20 to $89.50, and that's due to our labor law posters that we have to purchase every 3 years to be posted around the county. And we did also include a conference for workers' comp, which we actually are going to tomorrow, but I do want to do it again next year. And the carpool increased from $450 to $600, which the total expense went up $4,530.
You know, the two you've got posters and the education training acceptable.
Yes, do I need to?
Yeah, that needs to be either printing or off supplies. That line should be just for training your staff.
Okay, that's just where it's been,
Yeah,
so.
let's get that moved
Okay.
somewhere else so that we're consistent around the county.
But we've always done it.
Let's not.
I know, we've always. So what line?
She
should it
answered
be on?
everything.
You can put it under printing or off supplies, whichever one you're comfortable with, but
Okay.
take that amount and just slide it, please.
Travel plans are the New York State Association of Personnel and Civil Service Officers, which is every year, usually in October. So I plan on going to that and usually bring a staff member with me. Again, I mentioned the workers' conference, which is really, it's a one-day conference and it was in Saratoga this year. So I'm thinking it'll be local again next year. And then I do want to do more training for the new staff. So it's more likely to be online training, but I did put in case it was on-site training. So that may fluctuate a little bit depending on if they're on-site or off-site for training. Staffing requests. Get this out, so going fast, trying to pass them down. I know everybody's hungry. This isn't gonna.
Absolutely.
There'll be no cost associated with this change for next year. No, I'm sorry. So my plan here is to just kind of move our titles around a little bit. We created the personnel assistant position as a grade 8, or I want to keep that. But usually for when the duties increase for the position, we move them up 2 grades. So the personnel clerk is currently at a grade 12. We did have a trainee position at an 11. Where I actually want to remove that position and move the personnel clerk up to grade 10. And then add the title of personnel associate at a grade 12, which will allow the increasing of the duties for each position for each person at stake.
No new people, no new costs.
No new people, no new costs, just kind of we're doing the grade schedule.
I can live with that.
I like that.
That's all I have for that. Other business, can I do a couple backfills?
Mr. Hanky.
I just have two backfills, a highway worker 3, due to a resignation. And it'll cascade, and highway worker 2 due to that same resignation.
Favor?
And lastly was the DSS that she just asked for part-time caseworkers.
Personality, Robert, isn't it?
Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Now, she mentioned that had to go to the full board,
Staffing package.
so she can't hire.
She can in a way for as a temporary. Because she has vacancies.
And she has the people, so she can actually.
Now that's a sneak peek at all the requests, right, for the sheet we just got.
Oh, no,
No,
that's just her department. Yeah, you're gonna get the 2 or 3 pager next week.
Yeah, you want to mention that
we haven't
again?
done that in the last few
Well, you
years.
have a few different people here today. You want to go through that again today? You did yesterday. Tell us what we're gonna do.
We'll get a compilation, you get the compilation at the end of next week with all the changes that are requested and all the costs associated with it.
Without benefits,
Without
just
benefits.
straight up.
Yeah, which might
Be another binder like.
technically, it's your call whether you put it in the budget or not, but you're looking for input from everybody to say,
Well,
Jesus, we really can't do this, or we can fund this, no problem, or you really, if we don't tell you anything, you make the call. And then don't bitch about it, but if you got interest,
except for math.
if you got interest in things, tell Brian what you think. But you'll get it by the end of next week.
Pretty good.
When you discuss those with the personnel and finance, is that gonna be a joint meeting? Or not?
We were just gonna email them out.
Yeah.
No,
right.
when we actually meet,
The following week, we're gonna meet.
is that gonna be a joint meeting? Usually personnel is ahead of
Are you
finance.
just doing personnel and,
Are we gonna discuss it? Is it gonna be on your agenda or neither?
Should be on both, so, should be on both agendas.
Yeah, we can do it. Joanne.
What's that? Thank you, John.
Great, nice, Debbie.
On the other business, should we put on the table about what the commissioner brought forward with the email?
That's all part of what's coming out next week. It's all included.
I wanted to share something, food for thought. And we, as a county picks up more of these different positions, like assessors with what Laura was bringing out in appraiser, and we already have them with the building code department. I think of PBI and the $500,000 a year that with legacy costs dumps onto the county because of what we have. There's going to be a legacy cost. We're building on all this stuff that the county is taking over, and some towns don't get it. Like I'm harping about code enforcement because we don't use it. But now I'm thinking it's getting bigger all the time with real property. Even though the towns are paying for the costs associated with the new positions, there's a legacy cost that's going to be dumped down to everybody down the road.
But the savings are so great to every town.
But keep saying that. I haven't seen it yet with code enforcement. We break even or actually generate revenue. It's supposed to be 70,000 a year.
But you can't honestly believe that code enforcement and the assessor's office together to get as big as PBI.
You can actually do away with it. It's not even required code.
We did.
Not here.
But it was only $500,000 a legacy, you're saying, for how many ever?
Oh, I know, it's a big number.
So it's a huge different. No, it is, but it's a huge different, it's a complete different number, your legacy cost.
Okay.
But it's a number.
It is a number, yes.
And so the town of Kingsbury doesn't want to pay.
Well, you don't know if the town of Kingsbury may end up being one that uses the assessor. How do you know?
That's not
How
a
do
very
you
good
know?
reason for overlooking that or ignoring it.
No, you have to have.
So I think maybe the better question is, can we build in legacy costs? Is there a way to formalize that?
So instead of breaking even, make sure the revenue exceeds the current expense.
Right.
Yeah.
So that it creates a little fund balance in that covers legacy costs eventually, but it's got to be tracked and it should be dedicated towards that and not spent on
I
something
could
else.
say we never save it, because we didn't spend.
We reserve it like we reserve the PBI money.
So you have to reserve it, so it's. covered.
Yeah, but that ran out.
Otherwise we'll spend it. No, we'll spend it. All right, we'll spend it.
No, I'm just saying.
Well,
I guess
how
we
could we
reserve
do
it
that?
that way.
How could we do that?
There's no way to know what those extra costs are gonna be, because they go up every year. There's no way to know. Because the person could live to be 100, and the person could live to be 10.
That's true, Al.
You could take an actuarial look at it and see what a future cost would be for based on a
But as the stock market drops, the retirement costs, well, everything changes,
We do with those type costs now. There's a way to value it, yes.
Yeah, why don't we?
but it won't be accurate.
Well, but it could be better than nothing at all, correct, Brian?
Yeah, I think our
Better than nothing.
expectation is too huge to think it's gonna actually be the actual number. There's no way to predict what those extra costs are gonna
So if
be.
everybody in the room agrees, it's not gonna be the exact number. But it's better than.
I'm good with that, just don't try to believe that you're gonna save that number and that's always gonna be there to cover it. That's not, it's just not reality.
Okay.
That's your food for thought.
You just throw out Grambles cards. I'm leaving, so you got no more.
There you go.
We're adjourned.
And I'm your question about.
That's what I was
One thing I would